In the vast emptiness of space where the stars seemed like tiny pinpricks of light, there was a ship in distress. The ship, an alien vessel of sleek design and advanced technology, was drifting aimlessly through the cold vacuum of the universe. Its once glowing hull was battered, showing the signs of a battle that had left its crew vulnerable. Inside the ship, alarms blared as the crew scrambled to assess the damage. "Captain, we've lost all communication with the fleet," a panicked voice echoed across the control room. The alien crew, a diverse group of beings from various worlds, stared at the cracked screens in front of them. The walls trembled from the constant barrage of enemy fire, and the ship was slowly losing its stability. The captain, a tall and dignified being named Rithari, stood at the front of the command center, his expression grim. His deep green skin and silver eyes were filled with the weight of responsibility. His people had been traveling through an uncharted region of space when they encountered an unexpected enemy, a ruthless faction from a neighboring galaxy, known for their merciless raids on weaker civilizations. "We're out of options," Rithari muttered to himself, gazing at the flickering holographic map of the galaxy. His thoughts raced. Their allies were too far away and their ship's systems were failing fast. The distress signal they had sent out had been their last hope, but even that felt like a long shot. No one had responded, and Rithari feared it might be too late. The alien crew, a mix of species who had once fought together in the intergalactic wars, were now united in their fear. Many of them had been aboard Rithari's ship for years, and they had grown to trust one another. But today it felt like that trust might not be enough. The enemy was relentless, and their ship was slowly falling apart. "Captain, we've tried all possible escape routes," one of the officers reported. "The enemy ships are everywhere. They've blocked off our exits." Rithari clenched his fists. He had been in many battles, but this one was different. He was the leader of his people, and the weight of their survival rested on his shoulders. He could hear the faint sounds of his crew working furiously behind him, trying to keep the ship intact. But it was clear. Their chances were growing slimmer with every passing moment. "Do we have any way to fight back?" Rithari asked, his voice steady but strained. The officer turned to him with a resigned look. "Not with our current resources. We've lost our weapon systems. We're sitting ducks." Rithari's mind raced. He knew they couldn't survive much longer if they didn't get help, but help was nowhere to be found. Then, as if by some twist of fate, his eyes caught a fleeting glimpse of hope. Earth. He had heard of the humans before. They were a young species, but in their short time in the galaxy, they had proven themselves to be resilient and resourceful. They had a reputation for fighting hard and never backing down from a challenge. Rithari didn't know much about them, but he knew one thing. If there was anyone who could come to their aid, it would be a human. "Send a distress call to Earth," Rithari ordered. His voice was firm despite the uncertainty in his heart. "We need help. Now." The crew members hesitated. They had never communicated with Earth before, and they had no idea if their message would even reach the right people. But Rithari's command was absolute. The officer at the communication console hesitated for a moment before pressing the button to send the signal. The message traveled across the stars, hoping that someone, somewhere, would hear it. Meanwhile, on Earth, in the heart of a military base, Captain Marcus Steele was preparing for a routine mission. Steele was known across the galaxy as one of the top human fighter pilots. His reputation for skill, precision, and bravery had earned him respect from his fellow soldiers, as well as from other alien species who had encountered him in combat. Today, however, he was getting ready to simply check the new systems on his ship, a standard procedure before going on a test flight. But as he sat in the cockpit of his fighter, his headset buzzed with an incoming communication. "This is Earth. Command. We've received a distress signal from an alien vessel in the Kelter Nebula," the voice on the other end said. "The ship is under attack and their situation is dire. We need someone with your skills to respond." Marcus Steele frowned. He had heard of the Kelter Nebula. It was a region of space that few ventured into, known for its dangerous terrain and hostile factions. But Steele had faced worse. He wasn't afraid of a challenge. "I'm on it," Steele replied without hesitation, his hand already moving to prepare his ship for launch. The adrenaline kicked in, and a sense of determination washed over him. If there was one thing Steele knew, it was that no matter who needed help, he would always rise to the occasion. Within minutes, he was on his way, zooming through Earth's atmosphere and into space at breakneck speeds. The vastness of the stars stretched out before him, and he couldn't help but feel the weight of the task ahead. In the distance, the alien ship was still floating, struggling against the oncoming enemy forces, and Steele, Earth's top fighter pilot, was about to embark on a mission that would not only test his skills but perhaps change the future of humanity's place in the galaxy. Captain Marcus Steele sat in the cockpit of his fighter ship, the hum of the engines reverberating through his seat. His fingers danced across the controls and his mind remained focused. The mission ahead was far from ordinary, but that only seemed to make it more exciting. It wasn't every day that a human was called to help an alien race in peril. He had been briefed on the situation. The alien ship in the Kaltar Nebula was under attack, and it was up to him to rescue them. As the stars whizzed past the windows of his ship, Steele couldn't help but reflect on the gravity of the task ahead. The Kaltar Nebula was known to be a dangerous region of space, filled with hostile factions that didn't care for diplomacy. It was a place where many ships were lost, never to be seen again. But Steele was used to danger. In fact, danger was his constant companion. As Earth's top fighter pilot, he had earned a reputation for being fearless in the face of battle. The radio crackled to life, snapping Steele out of his thoughts. "Captain Steele, this is command. We've traced the distress signal. The alien vessel is still under heavy attack. You're our best chance at reaching them in time. Do not fail." Steele gripped the controls tighter, feeling the weight of the responsibility pressing down on him. The enemy forces were not only numerous, but highly skilled. However, Steele had never been one to back down from a challenge. His reputation had been built on taking risks and getting results. Today would be no different. "Understood," Steele replied, his voice calm and steady. "I'll be there soon." The ship's thrusters fired as Steele pushed forward, accelerating through space toward the nebula. The swirling, colorful clouds of gas and dust loomed ahead, marking the dangerous territory he was about to enter. As he flew deeper into the nebula, the stars seemed to vanish, swallowed by the dense gases that surrounded him. The atmosphere in his cockpit grew tense. There was no turning back now. Steele's mission was simple: get to the alien ship, assist the crew, and fight off whatever enemy was threatening them. Easy enough for someone of his skill level. Yet there was a nagging feeling in the back of his mind. He had fought alongside various alien races before, but this was different. The aliens he was going to help were strangers to him. He knew nothing about their culture, their technology, or their way of life. All he had was his training, his instincts, and his unwavering sense of duty. Steele was no diplomat, but he knew what it meant to be a protector. It didn't matter who was in danger. If there was a chance to save them, he would take it. After what felt like an eternity of flying through the dense fog of the nebula, the silhouette of the alien ship came into view. It was a magnificent vessel, much larger than Steele's fighter ship, and it seemed to be drifting aimlessly through space, its hull marred with visible damage. Steele's heart raced as he closed the distance between himself and the ship. He could see flashes of light in the distance, signs that the battle was still raging. "Alien vessel, this is Captain Marcus Steele of Earth's fleet. I've received your distress signal. Prepare to receive assistance," he transmitted over the radio, hoping his message would be heard by the ship's crew. A crackling voice responded almost immediately. "This is Rethari, captain of the Delvara. We appreciate your help, human, but we are unsure if we can trust you." Steele's brow furrowed. "I'm here to help you survive. That's all that matters right now. You can trust me to keep you alive." There was a brief pause, followed by Rethari's voice again. "Very well, human. But know this. Our enemies are relentless. They will stop at nothing to see us destroyed." Steele looked at his console. The enemy ships were closing in fast. It was clear that they were not going to give up easily. "Then we'll make sure they regret ever targeting you." Steele said, his voice full of confidence. He maneuvered his fighter ship into position, his hands moving rapidly across the controls as he prepared for the battle that was about to unfold. The alien ship, though badly damaged, still had its defenses up. Steele's eyes narrowed as he analyzed the situation. The enemy ships were a formidable force. Sleek and fast, they moved with deadly precision. But Steele knew his ship like the back of his hand, and he wasn't afraid of a challenge. The human fighter had the advantage in agility, something the enemy ships lacked. The alien ship, Delvara, was trying to hold its own, but the constant barrage of fire was taking its toll. Steele's mind raced as he scanned the battlefield. He needed to find a way to even the odds. Without warning, he dove his fighter ship toward the enemy, pulling off a series of evasive maneuvers. His ship twisted and turned through the asteroid field, dodging blasts as he zeroed in on the lead enemy ship. With pinpoint accuracy, Steele fired a barrage of plasma rounds, taking down one of the attacking ships in a single shot. The explosion lit up the dark void of space, signaling a small victory. But Steele knew the fight was far from over. He had just bought the Delvara some time, but he needed to buy them more. As Steele continued to engage the enemy, he couldn't shake the feeling that this mission was bigger than just one battle. Something told him that his actions today could have far-reaching consequences, not just for him, but for Earth and the galaxy as a whole. As Steele continued to fight with unmatched skill, he began to feel a strange sense of connection with the alien crew. Despite their differences, they were all in this together, and Steele wasn't about to let them fall. Captain Marcus Steele's fighter ship darted through the vast emptiness of space, his hands steady on the controls as his eyes remained locked on the distant enemy ships. The battle had escalated quickly, and Steele was now fully immersed in the fight for survival. His heart raced with every evasive maneuver, his mind sharp and focused as the enemy fleet closed in. But he was a seasoned pilot, and this was what he lived for, defending the helpless. The Delvara, the alien ship he had come to rescue, was still under heavy fire. Steele's initial strike had taken down one of the attacking ships, but that was only the beginning. More enemy vessels were emerging from the shadows, their sleek forms cutting through the stars like predators hunting their prey. They were faster than the human ships, and their weapons were deadly, but Steele had something they didn't: a human pilot's resilience and skill. He could see the alien crew working tirelessly inside their ship, repairing systems and trying to keep the Delvara in one piece. Their ship was battered but not yet defeated. The alien captain, Rathari, was doing his best to hold it together, but Steele knew it was only a matter of time before the enemies overran them. "Steele, we cannot hold much longer." Rathari's voice crackled over the comms. "We need more time to fully restore power to our shields." "I'll buy you that time, Captain," Steele responded firmly, his gaze locked on the enemy fleet. "Just hold on." With a quick flick of his wrist, Steele steered his fighter into another aggressive dive, narrowly avoiding the enemy's fire. His ship was agile, cutting through space like a needle threading its way through a storm. The enemy didn't expect such speed. They were used to facing larger, slower ships. But Steele was different. He used his smaller size to his advantage, ducking and weaving between asteroids and debris, making it nearly impossible for the enemy to land a shot. The enemy ships responded with even more coordinated attacks, attempting to block Steele's movements by surrounding him from all angles. They fired in rapid bursts, hoping to catch him in a trap. But Steele's experience was undeniable. He twisted his ship into sharp, unpredictable turns, avoiding their attacks with a precision that left the enemy scrambling. He could feel the tension in the air as his ship surged forward, the hum of the engines in sync with the rhythm of the battle. Steele's fighter was more than just a machine to him. It was an extension of his own body. Every move he made was instinctual, honed through years of training and countless battles. He could feel the pulse of the battlefield, sense the enemy's next moves before they made them. It was this connection, this bond between man and machine, that gave him the edge. But Steele knew he couldn't keep this up forever. The enemy fleet was relentless, and their numbers were growing. He had to find a way to turn the tide in his favor before it was too late. Suddenly, Steele had an idea. He glanced at his radar and saw a small group of enemy ships circling above him, preparing to strike from above. He pulled his ship into a sharp ascent, rocketing toward the higher levels of the battlefield. The enemy followed, eager to finish him off. Steele grinned to himself as he glanced over his shoulder, locking onto his targets. With a calculated move, he activated his afterburners, sending his ship surging forward at breakneck speed. The enemy ships were too close now, and Steele used their momentum against them. He angled his fighter at a steep angle, forcing the enemy ships to overcorrect in pursuit. As they did, Steele opened fire, sending a barrage of plasma blasts into their ranks. One by one, the enemy ships exploded in fiery bursts, scattering debris across the battlefield. But there were still more coming, and Steele knew this was only a temporary victory. The enemy leader, a ruthless commander known for his tactical brilliance, had realized the threat Steele posed. Steele could almost feel the commander's calculating gaze as the remaining ships reorganized, preparing for a more strategic approach. They were adapting, learning from their previous mistakes. This was no longer just about skill. It was about outsmarting them. "Rithari, how's the ship?" Steele called, his voice tense. "We're almost there, but the systems are still unstable," Rithari replied. "We can't keep this up much longer." Steele's mind raced. The situation was growing more dire by the minute. If the alien ship fell, so would the hope of any future alliance between humanity and these people. Steele had no intention of letting that happen. The Delvara needed its shields, and it needed them now. "Hold tight, Captain," Steele said. "I'm going to give you the opening you need." With a deep breath, Steele steered his fighter toward the lead enemy ship. His pulse quickened as he locked onto his target. This would be a risk, but Steele knew it was the only option. He aimed his weapons and opened fire, hitting the enemy ship's weak points with pinpoint accuracy. The ship began to falter, its defenses crumbling under the pressure. The enemy commander, now desperate, ordered a full assault on Steele's position. More ships closed in, surrounding Steele with no room for escape. But Steele wasn't worried. He had anticipated this. He dropped his fighter into a controlled dive, evading the incoming fire as the enemy closed in. His next move was going to be a gamble, a risky maneuver that, if it worked, would give the Delvara the time it needed to escape. Steele activated his afterburners again, pushing his ship into a high-speed dive straight through the heart of the enemy fleet. With a burst of speed, Steele launched his ship toward the center of the enemy formation, using his fighter as a battering ram. His ship collided with the enemy's lead ship, causing a massive explosion that sent shockwaves through the battlefield. The surrounding enemy vessels hesitated for a moment, unsure of what had just happened. In that instant, Steele's gamble paid off. The enemy fleet faltered, their ranks broken, their momentum slowed. It was enough. The Delvara's shields were back online, and Rithari's voice came through the comms, filled with relief. "We have power." "Shields are up," Rithari said. "Thank you, human. You've saved us." Steele allowed himself a brief smile, but he knew the battle wasn't over. There was still work to do. But for the first time since he'd arrived, he felt a spark of hope. The human pilot had given the alien ship a chance to survive, and now together, they might just win the day. The battle raged on. The stars around them turned into streaks of light as enemy ships continued their relentless assault on the Delvara. Steele's fighter was in the thick of it, weaving through enemy fire with deadly precision, dodging and striking at the same time. His fingers worked the controls with practiced ease, each move calculated, each decision made in a split second. His mind was sharp, his focus unyielding, and yet, as the hours passed, Steele began to feel the weight of the fight, knowing that the survival of the alien crew depended on him. Through the chaos, he could hear Rithari's voice over the comms. The alien captain's words were no longer filled with skepticism or distrust, but with respect. "We are holding, Steele. Your skill is beyond anything we expected," Rithari said, his voice calm despite the intensity of the battle. "You've turned the tide in our favor." Steele's lips curved into a small smile. He hadn't expected this. These aliens, who had initially doubted humanity, were now starting to see the value of human ingenuity. But Steele knew the battle wasn't won yet. The enemy was relentless, and they weren't backing down. Steele's ship dipped into another dive, narrowly avoiding a blast that would have hit dead center. He punched a button on his console, sending a series of countermeasures scattering into space, creating a cloud of decoys to confuse the enemy targeting systems. He glanced at the radar, noticing several enemy ships were making a coordinated move toward the Delvara. It was now or never. He had to buy them more time to regroup and finish repairs. "Rithari, I'm going in," Steele said, his voice steady. "I'll draw their attention away. Focus on getting your shields back to full power." There was a brief moment of silence before Rithari responded. "We are in your debt, human. Do what you must." Without another word, Steele pulled his fighter ship into a steep climb, aiming directly for the largest of the enemy ships. He could see the glowing engines of the lead enemy ship, bright against the darkness of space, and he aimed for it. His target lock beeped loudly as the crosshairs zeroed in on the weak spot in its shields. Steele didn't hesitate. He fired. The blast hit with pinpoint accuracy, and the enemy ship exploded in a fiery burst of light. Steele's eyes flicked to his rearview mirror, watching as the debris scattered into the void. But the victory was short-lived. There were still more enemies to face. The remaining enemy ships quickly regrouped, moving in from all directions, ready to take Steele down. Steele's breath quickened, but his mind was calm. He was in his element now, in the heart of battle. He had been in countless dogfights, but this one felt different. There was something at stake here, something beyond just his survival. The alien crew, the ship he had come to protect, depended on him. And he would not let them down. He dove back into the fray, his fighter speeding through space, firing at every opportunity. The enemy was more aggressive now, closing in from all sides, but Steele was relentless. His movements were fluid, each turn and twist expertly executed as he danced around enemy fire. He hit one ship, then another, taking out the weaker vessels and pushing the remaining enemies into disarray. Rithari's voice cut through the noise of the battle. "Steele, we're nearly there. Our weapons are back online. We can fight back now." Steele's heart raced as he heard the news. The tide was turning, but it wasn't over yet. There were still too many enemy ships, and they weren't going to retreat easily. He glanced over at the Delvara, its massive form in the distance, still withstanding enemy fire. He knew the crew was doing everything they could to stay operational, but he needed to keep them safe. The Delvara wasn't just a ship. It was a symbol of something larger, something worth protecting. The alien crew had come to trust him, and now it was his turn to prove that trust was not misplaced. "Just hold on a little longer," Steele shouted into his comms, his voice filled with urgency. The alien ship's weapons came to life as the crew opened fire, returning shots at the remaining enemy ships. Steele could feel the energy shift. The enemies that had been closing, and now hesitated, unsure of what to do. They were no longer fighting against a helpless ship, they were fighting against a united force. Steele made his move. With a quick flick of the controls, he accelerated forward, pulling another daring maneuver to get behind the last remaining enemy ship. His targeting system locked on, and with a steady hand, he fired. The blast hit the ship's engines, and it exploded in a flash, leaving only debris floating in its wake. The battlefield fell silent. The remaining enemy ships hesitated, pulling back, their morale shattered. Steele couldn't believe it. They had done it. They had won. He slowly guided his ship back toward the Delvara, the adrenaline still coursing through his veins. "Steele, you did it," Rithari said, his voice filled with awe. "We are safe thanks to you. You've shown us that humans are a force to be reckoned with." Steele smiled, feeling a sense of relief wash over him. "It wasn't just me," he said. "It was all of us, together." As he docked his ship near the Delvara, Steele felt something shift inside him. This mission, this unexpected alliance with the alien crew had changed him. It had proven that humans were not just survivors. They were protectors. And in that moment, Steele realized that humanity's place in the galaxy was far from defined. It was still being written with each act of bravery and kindness. The battle was over, but Steele's journey had only just begun. The battle had shifted. The enemy ships, once brimming with confidence and force, were now scattered, retreating into the vastness of space. Steele's fighter hovered near the Delvara, his eyes scanning the star-filled horizon. The enemy, though wounded, wasn't entirely gone. He could sense their hesitation, the calm before another storm. He wasn't ready to let his guard down just yet. The Delvara needed to be fully repaired, and any sign of danger could bring the enemy back in full force. Captain Steele came, Rithari's voice over the comms. We've regained some power, but the repairs are still ongoing. Our weapons are fully functional, but our shields are only at 40%. We're vulnerable if they return. Steele's fingers tightened on the controls as he considered their situation. The battle might be over, but the war wasn't. The Delvara was still fragile, and with enemy ships still in the area, they were far from safe. But Steele knew this wasn't the time for retreat. If the enemies wanted to come back, they would. Find a human fighter pilot ready to meet them head-on. I'll stay close, Steele said, his voice calm but firm. I'll patrol the perimeter. If they come back, they'll have to go through me first. Rithari acknowledged his decision with a simple, understood. The alien captain's trust in him had grown since the battle began, and Steele knew it wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about proving that humanity was capable of much more than just fighting. It was about showing that Earth wasn't just a planet to be feared. It was a place where allies could be found, even in the most unlikely of circumstances. As Steele circled the Delvara, he couldn't help but reflect on the alien crew. They were a people who had once doubted humanity's ability to make a difference. Yet here they were, depending on him for their survival. He had never imagined he would find himself in this situation, working side by side with beings from another world. Yet in this moment he felt a deep sense of purpose, a connection that transcended species. Suddenly, Steele's sensors lit up. A small group of enemy ships had appeared on the horizon, moving toward the Delvara once again. They had regrouped, preparing for one final assault. Steele's heart skipped a beat. This time, it was different. The enemy had learned from their previous mistakes. They weren't just coming in with brute force, they were coming in with a plan. Steele immediately adjusted his fighter's course, heading toward the incoming enemy fleet. His pulse quickened as he analyzed the situation. The enemy had split into two groups, one moving to flank the Delvara from the rear, the other approaching from above. They were making sure Steele couldn't engage them all at once. Rithari, Steele called over the comms. They're making a move. I'm going to need your weapons fully charged. We'll have to hold them off together. We are ready, Rithari replied. We have just enough power left to fight. Steele felt the weight of his next move. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about finishing what they had started. The alien ship had been damaged, but they had already come so far. The battle had forged a bond between them, a bond Steele was determined to protect. He opened fire first, aiming at the lead enemy ship, taking it by surprise. The blast from his fighter rocked the enemy vessel, sending it spiraling into space. But before Steele could regroup, the second wave of enemy ships attacked. Steele's hands flew over the controls as he ducked and weaved through their coordinated assault. He could hear the sounds of battle behind him, the hum of the Delvara's weapons firing, the screech of enemy ships being struck by powerful blasts. Steele's fighter moved in perfect harmony with the alien ship's defense, an unlikely but powerful partnership. He fired again, taking out another enemy ship, but the enemy forces were relentless. Their numbers seemed endless, and Steele couldn't shake the feeling that they were trying to wear him down. Rithari, I need those shields up, Steele shouted as enemy blasts narrowly missed his ship. We're doing our best, Rithari responded, his voice strained. But we need more time to restore full power. Steele's eyes scanned the battlefield. The Delvara's shields were weakening and the enemy ships had adapted, making it harder to predict their next move. The time for defense was over. Steele needed to take the fight to them. He darted forward, his fighter a blur of motion as he engaged with the remaining enemy ships. His movements were calculated, precise, and fast. The enemy ships were closing in on him from all sides, but Steele's agility kept him one step ahead. Each move was a risk, but Steele's heart raced with adrenaline. Then, as if in a moment of clarity, Steele saw it. The leader of the enemy fleet, an imposing vessel, was in the center of the chaos, directing the attack. This was the key. If Steele could take out the commander's ship, the remaining forces would fall apart. He locked onto the target and pushed his fighter to its limits, moving in with speed that made his heart pound in his chest. He dodged blasts and debris, getting closer to the leader's ship with each second. The enemy commander's ship fired a barrage of blasts in an attempt to stop him, but Steele was ready. At the perfect moment, he veered left and then right, narrowly avoiding the fire. He pulled up just beneath the leader's ship, aimed, and fired. The blast hit its mark. The enemy ship erupted in flames, its engines failing as it exploded into a brilliant flash of light. The rest of the enemy ships hesitated, their attacks faltering. The commander's loss had shattered their resolve. With one final push, the remaining ships turned tail and fled into the depths of space, their retreat marking the end of the battle. Steele let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. The battlefield was silent once again. The Delvara was still standing, and the enemy was no longer a threat. "Rithari," Steele said, his voice calm but filled with satisfaction. "It's over. You're safe." The comms crackled, and Rithari's voice came through stronger than before. "We owe you everything, Steele. You've done the impossible. We will remember this day." Steele leaned back in his seat, a sense of relief washing over him. He had done more than just fight for the alien crew. He had formed a bond that would last beyond this battle. And as he looked out at the stars, he knew this was just the beginning of humanity's role in the galaxy. Together, they had faced the impossible and emerged victorious. The silence that followed the battle felt almost deafening. Steele's fighter hovered near the Delvara, its once mighty engines now humming quietly in the aftermath of the conflict. Around him, the enemy ships were either destroyed or fleeing into the depths of space. The threat had passed, and yet, there was no immediate sense of triumph, no victory celebration. The alien ship still floated, damaged but intact, and Steele knew that for the crew of the Delvara, the fight wasn't over. The real work was just beginning. Steele was exhausted, his body still buzzing with the aftershocks of adrenaline, but he couldn't shake the feeling that this was a turning point. Today, humanity had not only fought to defend the Delvara, but had proven something much larger, something that would ripple across the galaxy. Humans weren't just survivors. They were protectors. "Steele," came Rithari's voice over the comms, breaking the silence. "We have successfully repelled the attack. Thanks to you, we are alive. But we have much to rebuild. I need you to know. Your actions today have made a deep impact on us." Steele glanced at the screen, seeing the alien captain's form on the hologram. Rithari's green skin, marked with battle scars, was a testament to the strength of his people. But there was something different in his expression now. It was respect. Steele had earned it, and he had earned it with more than just his fighting skills. It had been his leadership, his willingness to risk everything for strangers, that had truly turned the tide. "It was a team effort," Steele replied, his voice humble despite the pride swelling inside him. "We couldn't have done it without your crew, Rithari. You fought hard too." Rithari nodded, his silver eyes glowing softly. "You are right. We could not have done it without your help. We were ready to surrender. But you, your people, showed us that surrender was not the only option. We owe our lives to you." Steele felt a sense of accomplishment, but the battle had left its mark. He could see the signs of wear on the alien ship, its hull cracked and the engines sputtering with their final bursts of power. It was clear they needed repairs, urgent ones, if they were going to survive. "I've contacted Earth Command," Steele said after a moment. "They've already sent a fleet to assist with your repairs. Help is on the way." "Earth's fleet?" Rithari asked, his voice curious. "Are they all like you?" Steele chuckled softly. "Not exactly, but Earth Command has some of the best engineers and medical crews. They'll get your ship back to full strength in no time. You've got a powerful crew here, Rithari. They deserve the best." Rithari's eyes brightened, and for the first time, Steele saw a glimpse of hope in the alien captain's expression. Perhaps, perhaps we could learn much from each other, human. You have already proven that you are capable of far more than I ever imagined. As Steele surveyed the damage from the safety of his fighter, he couldn't help but agree. There was a new connection here, a bond that hadn't existed before the battle but that was forged through the heat of combat. It wasn't just about survival anymore, it was about the future. The battle they had fought together had paved the way for something larger, an alliance that had the potential to change the course of history. Steele, Rithari said, his voice serious now, you've shown us the strength of your people, but it is not just in battle. You have reminded us that there is more to life than fighting. There is a chance for peace, for cooperation. We need to talk. Steele's brow furrowed, intrigued. What do you mean, Rithari? The alien captain's gaze softened as he spoke. Our people have long been isolated. We've fought wars for so long that we've forgotten what it is to trust. You, human, are the first to come to our aid in years. You've given us something we thought lost. Hope. Steele considered Rithari's words carefully. He knew that humanity was still a young force in the galaxy, and there were many who doubted their place among the stars. But this was something more than just a mission. It was an opportunity to forge something that would last beyond this day. We didn't just come here to fight, Rithari, Steele said after a pause. We came here because it's the right thing to do. And if we can work together, if we can learn from each other, there's no limit to what we can accomplish. I believe that's what makes us different. We don't just fight for victory, we fight for a future. Rithari nodded slowly. A future, yes. You've given us that, Steele. We are ready to work with you. We are ready to learn. Steele's heart swelled with a sense of accomplishment, but it was tempered by a new understanding. The galaxy was vast, and it wasn't just about human survival anymore. It was about collaboration, about building something stronger than just individual species or isolated planets. It was about unity. The sound of another transmission filled the cockpit, pulling Steele from his thoughts. It was Earth Command. Captain Steele, the voice crackled. We've received your report. A fleet is already en route to assist the Delvara. We'll begin repairs immediately. Good work, Steele. The galaxy owes you one. Steele allowed himself a brief smile. It wasn't just me, Command. It was the crew of the Delvara. We're working together now, and that's something Earth needs to be a part of. Forefront, his green skin glistening in the dim light, and his silver eyes locked onto Steele with a mixture of gratitude and something deeper, respect. Steele stepped down from his ship, his boots making a soft thud as he approached the group. Despite the fatigue that weighed on him, he stood tall, his gaze meeting Rithari's. There was a moment of silence before the alien captain spoke. You have done what no one else would have, human. You've fought for us, bled for us, and in return you've earned our trust, Rithari said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. Steele smiled, though his expression was one of quiet reflection. It wasn't just me. We fought together. Your crew is just as much a part of this victory as I am, Rithari nodded. And that is what I've come to understand. Our worlds may be different, but the bond we've formed today is not one of species but of shared experiencing. I believe in what we've started here, and I'll make sure Earth stands by you, Rithari. We'll help you rebuild. Together. Rithari stepped forward, placing his hand on Steele's shoulder in a gesture of gratitude. Thank you, Steele. You've shown us what true strength is, not just in battle, but in the ability to work together. The universe is vast, but today, we've made it smaller. We've proven that even the most distant stars can be reached. The crew behind them nodded in agreement, their expressions a mixture of awe and admiration. Steele's eyes met Rithari's once more, and in that moment, they both understood something deeper. This wasn't just about one battle. It was about a future where cooperation, not conflict, was the guiding force. As the crew began to move toward the Delvara's control room, preparing for the repairs that would begin in earnest, Steele took one last look at the stars outside. The nebula, once a symbol of danger and isolation, now felt like a symbol of hope. The future was uncertain, yes, but it was also full of possibility. Steele felt a sense of purpose he hadn't known before. He wasn't just a soldier anymore. He was part of something bigger. Earth wasn't just a planet on the fringe of the galaxy, isolated and disconnected. It was a part of something much larger, something that reached across the stars, uniting different worlds, different species. The battle was over. But the war, if it could even be called that, was far from done. There were new challenges ahead, new obstacles to overcome. But Steele knew this much. Together, they would face them. "I'll be in touch with Earth Command," Steele said to Rethari, his voice steady. "I'll make sure the fleet's support reaches you in full force." Rethari smiled. "We will be ready, human." As Steele turned to follow the rest of the crew into the heart of the Delvara, he realized that this wasn't just the end of a battle, it was the beginning of an entirely new chapter. The universe had just grown a little bit smaller and a little bit friendlier, and Steele, along with his newfound allies, was ready to take on whatever the stars had in store. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: humanity was no longer alone in the galaxy.